The cell was carved from cold black stone, lit only by the faint glow of red energy bars that hummed like angry wasps. The air was thick with smoke and the metallic scent of burned wires. Outside, faint screams echoed from the halls of the raider station, where mercenaries laughed and cursed in strange tongues. Inside the prison chamber sat a girl unlike any other. She was no ordinary prisoner. Her long silver hair shimmered even in the dim light, her eyes glowing with violet fire, sharp with anger and pride. She was born into the high houses of her people, a princess raised to believe herself above all others. Even in chains, she sat with her back straight, her chin lifted high. She whispered to herself, almost as if daring the universe to listen. They cannot break me. I am highborn. Yet deep inside, a tremor of fear stirred. She was young, and though her spirit was strong, she had never known such darkness. The raiders wanted ransom, perhaps more. She imagined the shame if her people saw her like this, helpless, bound and waiting for fate. Suddenly the silence broke. A distant rumble shook the walls. The faint hum of plasma weapons flared in the corridors. Shouts turned into screams. The station shook as if under siege. The princess's eyes widened, though she forced her voice steady. Another band of thieves? She muttered, but doubt coiled inside her heart. No, this was something else. The sound was different, faster, harsher. The door to the prison hall exploded inward. Smoke filled the chamber as sparks rained down. From the haze stepped a figure she did not expect. A human. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in battered armor scarred with past battles. His face was hidden behind a cracked visor, his breathing ragged but steady. He held a weapon in one hand, a blade in the other, and his boots crunched on the broken steel as if he owned the ground itself. The alien girl gasped, then quickly masked her shock with scorn. In her world, humans were considered lesser beings, unrefined, reckless, dangerous. Yet here one stood, alive and unbroken in the heart of her prison. The raiders rushed after him, but he moved like a storm. His blade cut through the first, his blaster dropped the second. The third tried to charge him, but the human slammed the enemy into the wall so hard the sound cracked like thunder. One by one, the raiders fell, and soon the only sound was his heavy breathing echoing in the chamber. He turned toward the cell. The princess stiffened as his visor lit with a faint glow, scanning the locks. Sparks hissed as he forced the door open. The bars fell. The girl glared, her pride sharp. "Do not touch me, human." Her voice rang with command, the same tone she once used with her servants. The man didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward, kneeling by her chains. His gaunted hand reached out, grabbing the cold metal binding her wrist. Her eyes blazed with fury. "I said do not touch me," she hissed, jerking her arm away. No one outside her bloodline had ever dared place hands upon her. For a low creature like him to do so was beyond insult. But the human did not speak. He only ripped the chain from the wall with raw strength, sparks bursting from the lock. He repeated the motion for her other wrist, ignoring her outrage. She could not believe it. Was he deaf? Or did he simply not care? When the final chain fell, she stood quickly, brushing her wrists as if his touch burned her skin. Her lips curled in anger, but her heart beat faster than before. The human stepped back, scanning the room for threats. His voice was rough, low, filled with urgency. "No time, we have to move." She froze. His accent was strange, his tone commanding. No words of respect. No kneeling. No titles. Just orders. Her pride screamed to resist, but the distant sound of more raiders rushing down the hall twisted her gut. The floor trembled with the approach of heavy steps. The air filled with the smell of plasma fire. For the first time in her life, the highborn girl realized something horrifying. Her survival was now in the hands of a human, and she hated it. Yet when his gloved hand grabbed hers again, pulling her toward the broken door, she didn't pull away this time, Not because she allowed it, at least that's what she told herself, but because deep down, she knew. She had no choice. The alarms wailed louder, red lights flashing against the stone walls. The human dragged her into the smoke, his grip unyielding, his eyes sharp with determination. The highborn girl lifted her chin, trying to pretend she still had control. But inside, her heart whispered a truth she dared not admit. She was afraid, and worse. She felt safer in the hands she despised. The corridors of the radar station were alive with chaos. Sirens screamed. Metal groaned. Sparks rained from broken lights. The air was thick with smoke, each breath sharp and bitter. The human pulled the highborn girl forward, his hand locked around her wrist. She tried to resist, her pride screaming louder than the alarms. But his grip was unshakable, firm like iron, dragging her through the destruction. "Release me!" she snapped, her voice echoing in the steel passage. "I do not need your help, human." He didn't even glance at her. His eyes stayed fixed ahead, watching for shadows in the haze. His silence cut deeper than her insults. Another group of raiders rounded the corner, blasters raised. Before she could even blink, the human shoved her behind him. He dropped to one knee, firing 3 quick shots. The first raider fell with a hole through his chest. The second crumpled against the wall, and the third tried to fire but was too slow. The human's blade flashed, and the fight ended in heartbeats. The princess gasped, despite herself. He fought like no alien soldier she had seen, fast, raw, without hesitation. There was no elegance, no ceremony, no code of honor. Just brutal survival. She took a step back, lifting her chin. "You kill like a savage." The human wiped blood from his visor, then turned toward her. His voice was low, cold. "I kill so you live. Walk." Her words stuck in her throat. She wanted to call him insolent, unworthy, beneath her. But her pride and the thunder of approaching footsteps collided inside her chest. With a hiss of frustration, she followed, her long robes dragging across the floor as if mocking her helplessness. The station shook violently, throwing her against the wall. For a moment, the smoke cleared, revealing the destruction around them: fallen beams, twisted steel, sparks from broken panels. Her ankle twisted as she stumbled. She nearly fell into the fire, licking at the floor, but the human caught her. His arms circled her waist, pulling her close. His armor was hot, his breathing heavy, but his grip was steady. Her eyes widened in outrage. "Do not touch me again," she cried, shoving at his chest. His gaze hardened. He didn't let go. "Then walk without falling," he snapped, pulling her upright before turning away. The highborn girl trembled, not from fear, but from humiliation. Never in her life had anyone dared speak to her like this. She was used to servants bowing, soldiers saluting, nobles flattering her, and now, a human treating her like a burden. Yet another thought burned beneath her anger. Without his arm, she would have fallen into the flames. The human led her deeper into the station, blasting locks, cutting through barriers. Every second was war. Every corner could be death. When they reached a narrow passage, he stopped suddenly, pressing her back against the wall with one hand. Her violet eyes blazed, ready to scream at him again. But then she saw why. A patrol of raiders marched by, armored and armed to the teeth. They passed so close she could smell the oil on their rifles. The human's body shielded hers, his arm firm across her front, holding her still. Her heart pounded. She could feel the heat of his breath, the strength in his chest, the roughness of his glove against her gown. Every part of her screamed at the shame of being held so tightly by him, and yet, she didn't push him away this time. The patrol passed. Silence returned. The human slowly stepped back, his visor glowing faintly in the smoke. She glared, forcing her pride into words. "Your touch is forbidden, human. It is an insult to my bloodline." He looked at her for the first time, his voice dry, almost mocking. Your bloodline will be ashes if we don't move." For a moment, she had no answer. No one had ever dismissed her words so easily. Her mouth opened, then closed. Anger boiled, but beneath it, a strange sting of respect. They pressed onward, moving through collapsing corridors. The station groaned like a dying beast, flames chasing them at every turn. When a ceiling beam fell, the human shoved her clear, taking the hit across his shoulder. He staggered, pain flashing across his face, but he kept going. The girl stared in disbelief. This creature, this human, was willing to be crushed, burned, and broken for her sake. And all she had given him were insults. The thought unsettled her more than the danger itself. When they finally burst into a cargo bay, the human paused to catch his breath. His armor was scorched, his gloves torn, blood dripping from a cut across his arm. Still, his hand never trembled. He turned to her, his voice steady. "We're almost out." She wanted to say something, anything, but the words refused to come. She had mocked his touch, rejected his help, spat on his honor. Yet he still fought for her. For the first time in her life, the highborn girl felt something she could not control. Not hatred, not pride, but doubt. And in that doubt, a seed of regret began to grow. The cargo bay was no safer than the prison. Flames licked the steel walls, smoke rolled across the ceiling like dark waves, and explosions thundered from somewhere deep inside the Raider station. The floor trembled as if the entire place was moments away from tearing itself apart. The human scanned the room quickly. His visor reflected burning lights, his breath steady, even though blood dripped from a wound on his shoulder. He pointed toward a half-broken door on the far side. "That way," he said firmly. The highborn girl lifted her chin, coughing on the smoke. She wanted to demand respect, to command him like a servant, but her throat was raw and her pride was buried beneath the roar of the fire. Still, she muttered sharply, "You act as if you own this place." The human didn't answer. He just grabbed a fallen crate and shoved it aside to clear a path. Sparks rained down as the ceiling split open, exposing twisted pipes. From above, fuel dripped into the flames, feeding the fire. When the girl stepped forward, her foot caught on the uneven floor. She nearly fell into the spreading blaze, but his hand caught hers again. Pulling her close, she gasped, fury flashing in her violet eyes. "Again?" she hissed. "Do you enjoy insulting me?" His voice came back like steel. "I enjoy keeping you alive. Move." She wanted to slap him. No one in her entire life had dared speak to her with such bluntness. And yet, deep in her chest, something burned hotter than the fire around them. It was not just anger. It was something she could not name. They ran together across the bay, smoke choking the air. Raiders appeared from the shadows, weapons ready. The human shoved her behind a steel beam. "Stay down," he barked. He charged forward without hesitation. Blaster fire streaked past him, lighting the smoke like lightning. He rolled low, fired 3 quick shots, and cut another enemy down with his blade. The girl peeked from behind the beam, her heart racing. The way he fought, it was reckless, raw, almost suicidal. But it worked. One by one, the raiders fell, and soon silence returned except for the roar of the flames. The human staggered back, smoke clinging to his armor. His visor cracked more with each battle, but his steps were unbroken. The highborn girl stood, brushing ash from her gown, trying to cover the trembling in her hands. She told herself she trembled from the heat, not from watching him fight like a force of nature. Suddenly, the floor shook violently. The bay doors blew apart as another explosion ripped through the station. A river of fire surged toward them, devouring everything in its path. The human grabbed her wrist again, dragging her into the collapsing hall. "Run!" she screamed at the audacity of his touch, but the fire swallowed her voice. The station itself seemed determined to bury them alive. They sprinted through the corridor as flames chased their heels. Metal beams fell around them like burning spears. One crashed between them, splitting the path. For a moment, the girl was alone, the fire roaring toward her. Her chest froze. Without thinking, she cried out, not for her guards, not for her family, but for him. Human. He appeared again, bursting through the smoke, leaping over the fallen beam. His arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her into his chest as they jumped across a collapsing bridge. The world roared beneath them, the fire reaching like claws. They landed hard on the other side. She coughed, her silver hair singed at the edges. His armor smoked, the heat scarring the metal. For a moment, neither moved. His arm was still around her, holding her close against the thunder of destruction. She looked up, her face inches from his cracked visor. Through the broken glass, she saw his eyes tired, focused, but blazing with will. Her heart skipped. She shoved him away quickly, masking her confusion with fury. Unhand me. Do you not understand who I am? He stared at her, silent for a long moment. Then he turned and blasted the next door open with his weapon. I understand, he said flatly. You're someone I refuse to let die. Her words failed her. They stepped into a narrow passage that led toward the hangar. The fire behind them roared, blocked only by the sealed door. But the girl still felt its heat in her bones. She had been outraged by every touch, every word, every insult to her pride. But in that one moment, when he leapt back into the fire for her, something inside her shifted. It wasn't gratitude. It wasn't trust. Not yet, but it was the first crack in the wall she had built her entire life. And deep inside, hidden even from herself, she wondered if this human could defy fire and death for her. What else was he capable of? The hangar bay was a graveyard of broken ships. Flames licked at twisted hulls, fuel spilled across the floor, and the ceiling groaned as if ready to collapse. The human scanned the wreckage quickly, dragging the highborn girl behind him. There, he muttered, pointing toward a small shuttle half buried in debris. The girl narrowed her glowing violet eyes. The craft was dented, its wings scorched, and smoke curled from its engines. That, you expect me to fly in that ruin? He didn't even look at her. It flies. That's enough. She clenched her jaw. Never had anyone dismissed her opinion so easily. But as another explosion ripped through the hangar, she bit back her words. Pride meant nothing if they both died here. They climbed into the shuttle. The interior was dark and stinking of burned wires. He pushed her into the passenger seat and slid into the pilot's chair. His fingers flew across the console, flipping switches, pulling levers. Sparks danced from the controls, but the engines coughed and roared to life. The shuttle lifted just as the hangar doors gave way, fire flooding inside like a living beast. The small craft shot forward, bursting through the flames into the void of space. For the first time since her capture, silence wrapped around the princess. No screaming raiders. No collapsing metal. Just the endless darkness of space, lit by distant stars. But the silence did not bring peace. Inside the shuttle, the only sounds were the hum of engines and the rasp of their breathing. He kept his eyes on the stars, his hands steady on the controls. She sat stiffly, her gown torn and blackened, her hair tangled with ash. Yet her chin remained high. Her voice broke the silence, sharp and cold. You have touched me without permission. Again and again. You have spoken to me without respect. Do you understand the insult you have given to my bloodline? The human didn't look at her. I understand you'd be dead without me. Her chest tightened. No fear, no shame in his words. Just truth. A truth she hated. You dare, she hissed, her hands curling into fists. You dare speak to me as if we are equals? Finally, he turned. His visor was cracked enough for her to see his eyes, dark, steady, unshaken. No, I don't see us as equals. Out there, he pointed back toward the burning wreck of the station, you would not have lasted 1 minute. And out here, you still won't, unless you listen. The air felt heavier than the void outside. She opened her mouth to strike him down with words sharper than blades. But nothing came, because in her heart, she knew he was right. The silence stretched. The hum of the engines filled the space between them, and for the first time, she noticed the blood dripping from his arm. He had tied a piece of torn fabric around it, but the wound was deep. She looked away quickly, her pride refusing to let her speak the concern burning at her tongue. Minutes passed. The stars blurred as the shuttle streaked through space. At last, she whispered, almost to herself, "Why?" He didn't answer immediately. His eyes stayed on the stars, his hands steady at the controls. "Why would you risk yourself for me?" She pressed, her voice louder this time. "You could have left. You could have run. But you came into that prison. For me." This time, he glanced at her, his expression unreadable. Because it was right. No grand speech. No demand for reward. Just 4 simple words her breath caught. For her people, everything was politics, honor, alliances, reputation. No one did anything without reason. But this human? He had stormed into fire and death, not for glory, not for gold, but because. It was right. Her chest ached with confusion. She hated his touch. She despised his tone. Yet his answer unsettled her more than any insult. The silence grew heavier, pressing on her shoulders. She tried to look away, but her eyes kept drifting back to him, the sweat on his brow. The cuts on his hands, the way his shoulders refused to slump even in exhaustion. For the first time in her life, the highborn girl did not know what to feel. Fear? Respect? Shame? Or something else she dared not name. The shuttle trembled as it left the ruined station behind. In the endless void, only 2 figures remained: an alien girl raised to believe humans were beneath her, and a human who had risked everything without asking for anything. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was a storm neither of them could escape. The shuttle drifted through the darkness of space, its engines humming a low, steady rhythm. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant, silent witnesses to the fragile craft carrying 2 souls who could not be further apart. The highborn girl sat upright in her seat, arms folded tightly across her chest. Even in torn robes and with ash tangled in her hair, she held herself like royalty. Her violet eyes gleamed with fire every time they glanced at the human beside her. He, however, was calm. Blood soaked through the bandage on his arm. His armor cracked and scorched, but his hands remained firm on the controls. He flew the shuttle with quiet precision, his gaze locked on the endless black ahead. Finally, her patience broke. "You will explain yourself." "Human." Her voice was sharp, echoing through the small cabin. "Why do you risk yourself for me? You had no orders. You had no gain. Your people are not allies of my house. So why?" His eyes stayed on the stars. "I already told you." "Because it was right." Her fists clenched. "Do not mock me with such empty words. Among my kind, nothing is done without reason. Was it for ransom? For reputation? For glory? Speak the truth." Slowly, he turned toward her. His gaze was steady, unflinching. "What glory is there in bleeding alone? What reputation is earned by saving someone who spits on you? I don't care about those things. I did it because I chose to." She blinked. The words struck harder than any weapon. Choice. He spoke of choice as if it were enough. "You are reckless," she snapped, though her voice faltered. "You act without thought. You touched me, again and again, against my will. You speak to me as though I am no different from you. Do you not know who I am?" His reply was quiet, but each word cut through the silence. "I know exactly who you are. You're someone who would already be dead if I hadn't ignored your outrage." Her chest tightened, pride clashing with truth. She wanted to scream, to strike him, to remind him of her bloodline, her rank, her untouchable honor. But deep inside, she knew his words were not lies. The silence between them grew heavier. The hum of the engines filled it, but it felt like thunder inside her ears. At last she whispered, "You shame me, human." He raised an eyebrow. "For saving you. For treating me as if I am weak," she said, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and something else she could not name. For the first time, he leaned closer, his cracked visor reflecting the violet glow of her eyes. "I didn't treat you as weak. I treated you as someone worth saving." Her breath caught. The cabin seemed smaller, the air thicker. She turned her face away quickly, unwilling to let him see the heat rising in her cheeks, but her pride was not ready to surrender. "Among my people, honor is everything. Respect is everything. A highborn does not accept the touch of a lesser creature. And you," she glared at him again, her voice sharp, "you are the lowest of all. A human." For a moment, his jaw tightened. His hands gripped the controls harder, veins standing out against his skin. Then he exhaled slowly, his tone steady, but edged with something like challenge. "Maybe that's why I'll always win. Because I don't care about being highborn. I don't care about rules written to protect pride. I only care about surviving. And making sure the people beside me survive too." Her heart skipped. His words carried no poetry, no grandeur, yet they rang with a raw strength she could not deny. She tried to speak, but only silence came. The engines hummed. Stars passed silently. Inside the shuttle, two worlds collided, not with weapons, but with beliefs. She had always thought humans were reckless savages. Yet sitting here, staring at the one who had risked everything for her without asking anything in return, she felt something she had never felt before. Not fear. Not disgust, but doubt. For the first time, the walls of her pride trembled. And though she hated it, though she wanted to bury the feeling, she knew the truth. This human had wounded her more deeply than chains or fire ever could. The shuttle floated through deep space, its engines whispering a steady hum. The stars stretched into endless rivers of light as the craft glided forward. For the first time since her capture, the highborn girl felt no chains, no prison walls, no fire snapping at her heels. But the silence was not comforting. She glanced at the human sitting in the pilot's seat. His visor was cracked, his armor blackened, his arm tightly wrapped in a strip of cloth. Dried blood stained his gloves, and each breath he took sounded heavier than the last. At first, she told herself it didn't matter. He was only a human, a creature of lower birth. His pain was not her concern. That was what her pride demanded, but pride wavered when she noticed his hands. His fingers trembled slightly on the controls. His back was straight, but she could see the strain in his shoulders. He was pushing himself beyond reason, forcing his body to obey when it clearly wanted to collapse. Her chest tightened. The silence broke when the shuttle jolted, hitting a pocket of turbulence. The human coughed sharply, gripping his side as if the air had punched through his ribs. For a moment, his eyes closed. The girl leaned forward, alarm flashing across her face. "What is it?" she demanded. "What happened?" He opened his eyes slowly, shaking his head. "Just a wound. Nothing that matters. Nothing." She almost shouted. The word burned on her tongue. How could he dismiss his own injury so carelessly? Then she froze. Why did she even care? He had touched her without permission. He had insulted her bloodline, spoken as if they were equals. He had treated her like a burden and a responsibility at the same time. By all rights, she should want him gone the moment they reached safety. And yet, when he swayed in his seat, when his breath hitched, her heart clenched with something she could not name. "Move aside," she said suddenly, her voice sharper than she intended. He frowned. "What?" I said. "Move," she repeated. "You cannot fly like this." "Let me." He gave a low, tired laugh, shaking his head. You've never flown a craft like this in your life." Her pride snapped. "Do not mock me," she hissed, but then stopped herself. This was not about pride anymore. She lowered her voice. You are bleeding." The words felt strange in her mouth. She had never admitted concern for a human before. He didn't argue further. Instead, his body gave her the answer she feared. His head tilted. His hands slipped from the controls, and he slumped forward. Unconscious, her breath caught. For the first time, the human was not the storm. He was not unbreakable. He was fragile. The shuttle beeped in warning as it drifted off course. The highborn girl's hands shook as she reached forward, steadying the controls. She had no training, no experience. But she forced herself to focus. Her other hand hovered above him. His blood seeped through the bandage, staining his armor darker. She pressed her palm against the wound, awkward and trembling, but firm enough to slow the bleeding. "Foolish human," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why would you fight so hard for me, when I gave you nothing but hatred?" Her throat tightened. She had mocked his touch. Now she was holding him herself, not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't bear the thought of him slipping away. Memories of his words echoed inside her mind. Because it was right. Her pride cracked. For the first time in her life, she realized how fragile her honor was compared to his will. The engine steadied. The stars passed silently. And inside the shuttle, the highborn girl sat with her hand pressed against the wound of the one she had sworn to despise. Her lips trembled with the truth she could no longer deny. "I was wrong." The words were so soft they almost vanished into the hum of the engines. But she knew. She had spoken them. And once spoken, they could never be taken back. For the first time, regret filled her heart, regret sharper than any chain, any insult, any fire. She did not know if the human could hear her. But she whispered again, more fiercely this time, "Do not die, human. Not now. Not before I can make this right." And as she held him, the highborn girl realized the most dangerous truth of all. She no longer hated his touch. She feared losing it. The shuttle pierced through the last veil of starlight and entered orbit of her homeworld. Towers of crystal cities shimmered below, oceans reflecting the glow of twin suns. It was a world of elegance, power, and unbroken pride. Her world. The highborn girl sat in silence, her hand still resting against the bandaged wound of the human slumped beside her. His breaths were shallow but steady now, his face pale, his armor cracked and scarred. Every scar was a story, every cut a reminder of what he had endured for her. She had spent her life believing humans were beneath her people, reckless savages unworthy of respect. Yet this one had stepped into fire and steel without hesitation. He had carried her when she stumbled, shielded her when raiders attacked, bled so she might breathe free air again. And she had answered his courage with outrage, his touch with scorn. Her chest tightened as regret spread through her heart. Like poison. The shuttle descended into the grand hangar of the Royal Citadel. Soldiers lined the platform, their polished armor gleaming, their weapons sharp. Nobles stood behind them, eyes wide in shock as the battered shuttle opened its hatch. The girl stepped down first, torn robes trailing across the shining floor. Her people gasped to see her alive. Behind her, the human staggered out, his movements heavy, each step a battle. At once, the guards moved to block him. Their spears lowered, their eyes filled with contempt. "A human?" One of the generals spat. "You dare bring this creature here?" The girl's lips trembled. This was her moment. She should have agreed. She should have let them drag him away, discard him like dirt. That was what her bloodline demanded. That was what her pride once would have done. But not anymore. She stepped forward, her voice cutting through the hall like thunder. "Stop!" The guards froze. Every eye turned to her. "This human," she declared, her voice shaking but strong, is the reason I stand here alive. Without him, your princess would be ash in a raider fire. Without him, I would have died in chains. Gasps rippled through the hall. Nobles whispered in disbelief. The general scowled, lifting his chin. Highborn, do not shame yourself. He touched you. He stood above his station. He insulted your honor. Her violet eyes blazed, and for the first time, she felt no shame in the truth. Yes, he touched me. He defied me. He spoke to me as if I were no different than him. The hall fell into stunned silence. Her next words trembled from her lips but carried the weight of stars. And for that, I owe him more than I can ever repay. The human shook his head, his voice faint but steady. You don't owe me anything. Her heart clenched. How could he still say that, after all she had done, after all the hatred she had shown him? No, she whispered, stepping closer. Her hand brushed his arm, this time not in outrage, but in choice. I owe you everything, and I regret every word I ever spoke against you. The nobles murmured in shock. Some looked horrified, others curious. But she no longer cared. For the first time in her life, she chose not to live by pride, but by truth. The human met her gaze. His eyes were tired, yet there was a faint smile on his lips. Then prove it. Not to me, but to yourself. Her throat tightened. She wanted to answer, but words failed. All she could do was nod, her chest heavy with emotions she had never known before. The guards stepped back. The hall remained silent, waiting for the next command. But the girl no longer thought of them, nor of titles, nor of honor. Her world had been built on pride. But one human had shattered it with his will, his courage and his touch, and now, as she stood beside him, she realized the cruelest truth of all. She had hated his hands when they freed her, cursed them when they saved her, rejected them when they carried her. But now, she feared nothing more than the day those hands would no longer be there. The highborn girl lifted her chin, not out of pride, but to hide the tears burning in her eyes, and for the first time, she whispered words no one in her world had ever expected to hear. I would rather be touched by this human again than live untouched by all the rest. The hall trembled with gasps. The human only smiled faintly, his strength fading as his body demanded rest. And in that moment, the princess knew her regret would never fade, because she had learned, too late, what she should have seen from the start. The hands she once despised were the only ones that had ever truly saved her.